And I did want to talk briefly just about the process of putting this together. You know, you work in a local newsroom. I worked in the local newsroom for 20 years, and
Mm.
I know, you know, the staff is not huge, and you're really busy trying to just keep your head above water, just trying to cover just the day-to-day goings on of what's happening in the community. How was your organization able to sort of set aside the time to do this? Not to mention, you know, in the midst of a pandemic, crazy election season, all the, you know, the Black Lives Matter protests happening around the
Hmm.
country over the summer. It was just, it's been an insane past few months. But, you know, you were able to help lead this team through this amazing piece of journalism that, you know, you don't see documentaries come out of local TV newsrooms very often.
You know, I don't think I realized the work that was done in the middle of all of that until after the fact. I think I was on adrenaline for many, many months because I was like our lead reporter during the Black Lives Matter movement after the murder of George Floyd, and then doing some local reporting regarding some incidents that happened here. And it was really right after that that I went to my news director with this pitch that I had put together way before I proposed it to her because I was so nervous. I'm like, there's no way that our management team is going to go for this. There's no way that our company is going to allow for this because I'm also our lead investigative reporter. And I usually produce about 4 to 5 stories for each um, ratings period, and they're all data driven stories, and so I'm like, they're not going to give up that for this, you know. And I went to her and my news director, and she did not bat an eye. She said, okay, all right, get it done. But I think at the time she didn't realize what I had in mind. I think she thought this was going to be just a regular 30-minute special with like 3 or 4 reporter packages. And so as time went on and I started really putting everything together, and we needed, you know, more time and various different things, she's like, what is it you're doing again? I said, we're doing a documentary. And she's like, did I agree to that? And I said, well, we're in it now. And I will say this. We could have used more resources. I essentially was the executive producer, the associate producer, the you know, the grip. We had 2 photographers dedicated to the project, and the reporters who you saw weren't always necessarily there to do all of the interviews, but we made sure that they were there for at least one of their interviews so that we could have those cutaway shots of them in the piece. The interviews that they couldn't do, I did. I had already developed all of the questions and done all the research for them. So that helped, I think, too, when I proposed this to the newsroom. They didn't have to factor in time for the research because it had already been done. So when I presented this PowerPoint to them, it was like, this is what we know. Can we do it? And will you allow the resources to do it? So oddly enough, I had to get permission from the Ocoee City Commission to utilize the space where we did all of the interviews. Full on presentation in front of the city council, and I thought for sure they were going to deny the request, and they didn't bat an eye. They let us do it. And this was even before the mayor had agreed to sit down and talk to us. So in order to make this work and to be the most efficient with time, we had to line up every interview we did back to back to back over a 4-day period. It literally was like we started at my crew got there, 2-man crew got there at like usually 8:30 in the morning, and took about an hour to set up all the camera angles that we needed. And we started interviews at 9:30, and it was 9:30. 10:30. If I had a sense based on the pre-interviews that something was going to take longer, then it'd be like, okay, let's take a long lunch break and then we'll regroup at 1 and then we'll go to 3 with somebody. But the pre-interviews were so important because that's when you got a sense of how much that person was going to have to say. And that's how I outlined the schedule. But it was back to back to back to back to back. And you've got to have people who are committed to this work because it's tiring work. It's time consuming. I bought breakfast for my guys every day because I wanted them to be fueled, to have the energy to do the work and be into it. But they were completely vested. They worked every single weekend to get the shots of the video that you saw for about 3 months consecutively. And none of us got a day off for about 5 months. And so when our managers finally saw the end result, because they never saw anything until we finished editing, which was about a week before we showed them the final edit, or as closest to final as we were going to be, they were in complete, like they couldn't believe it. They were like, oh, this is what you guys were working on. And we weren't satisfied with what we showed them, because we even saw things that we thought, oh no, we need to go back and fix this. And my news director and her management team, they said, if this goes on TV like this today, you've done more than what we even expected on a very basic level. And so that was very rewarding and satisfying to hear that from a management team that had not seen any work. They hadn't seen any of the scripts. They didn't know what we were doing. And so that was very rewarding. It really was. And I do think that this shows that if local newsrooms are willing to trust their employees and trust their talent, their knowledge, their capabilities, this type of work can be done. There are talented people in every local newsroom. I think that you just have to have managers who are willing to entrust them and sort of let them go